people, my people. Hausas will say my people, and Hausa man will say, or Fulani or whoever, they will say my people. Pidgin English will say my people or Wari people. Yeah, it's been a long time. It's been a long time. I am glad to be live today. It's been a very, very long time I came on live. Not because I don't want to come on live, but because, so many factors. You just find yourself getting busy, and before you know it is the end of the day, and then you wake up in the morning, you say you want to do some stuff again, you plan, maybe today I'm going to be going live, and then you discover that you can't do it. But anyways, I'm here today. I appreciate those of you who have been watching my video uploads on critical information that I would keep sharing and doing as much as I can, and also on factors that borders, on situations and circumstances that are relative to, to the things that concerns us or related to the things that concerns us. I want to welcome you today. Today is the 23rd day of August 2000, 24th day, Saturday, 24th of August 2024, and it is, of course, 5:45 p.m. Biafra time. 5:45 p.m. Biafra time. But here it is, where I am, it is 4:46 now, which is 5:46 Biafra time. I want to appreciate you one more time. Please, as you come on, like this video, share on all your social media platforms. I want to be looking at something critical because I want to do this live, because sometimes when it is live, you have the liberty to speak about so many things and say so many things. Observing global politics and global issues, when I observe them, I try to also liken them to what is happening to us and also to relate them to us as a nation, as Biafrans. And so when we're looking at global issues, definitely we're also looking at ourselves, because the world has become a globe where anything happening in any nation of the world, you also must think of yourself. If today the war in Ukraine and Russia, and Ukraine issue, and where the West is prompting Ukraine to be, to go on with wars and fighting, they also concern us. You can agree with me that in 2022, when that war, February 2022, I think 26th of February 2022, when that war broke out, suddenly there was hike in food, and scarcity, fuel scarcity, and hike in price of basic commodities and all of that, because things were going the other way around somewhere in Europe, and of course the one that is happening in Gaza, where on October last year, the Hamas group decided to attack Israel, terrorist attack on Israel, which had led to the wars that we're experiencing today. And most of these things could be averted if the right thing is done. But anyways, looking at these things and then looking at ourselves too as a people, and looking at Africa generally, not just alone with Biafra, or looking critically at the contraption called Nigeria, we have to marry these things and see how we can deduce some base. What intelligent people do is this: when things happen around them, they tend to get lessons and learn from what is happening, so that they will be able to sort their own problems and resolve their own issues. We have our basic issues, and basically our issues are caused by mistakes, by misbehaviors, by colonial programs and colonial activities that has affected our people, and especially also these colonial activities sponsored by the West, also creating situations in Africa. Today, I was listening to the news today, and I was listening to some interviews, and of course the foreign affairs minister or something, foreign affairs and representative of Europe, on in the United Nations also, or is it United Nations also, was talking about how Russia has taken over, the Sahel, inclusive of, the nations that today are saying they don't want to be part of, um, they don't want to be under France or under any colonial control anymore. All of you know what is going on in Niger Republic. You know what is going on in Mali, and you know what is going on in Burkina Faso right now. Sudan is fighting, lots of things, and most of these things are prompted by the, fights to take over or to control Africa. Most of the wars you find in Africa, let me tell you something. The wars you find in Africa, the wars are not created by us. They are actually designed by the West. How do they do this? How do they do it? Now, they must divide you. For instance, look at what is happening in South Africa today. South Africa versus Nigeria, using the British colonial program called Nigeria. That name becomes a curse on people who are indigenous to Biafra Nation, or the Oduduwa Nation, Hausa Nation, and other nations that are trapped. That nation becomes a curse because, that name becomes a curse because anytime you use that name as a definition to a people, internationally, those people are regarded as useless, as criminals, and as worthless. Just go anywhere in the world and say you are a Nigerian. The next thing that comes is that, oh, these crooks, these criminals, these people, these crazy people, these useless people, these people who are running everywhere trying to look for better lives. They can't redeem themselves. They can't rescue themselves. They can't solve their own problems. These are the things that happen whenever you say you are a Nigerian. Whenever you say, I am a Nigerian, anywhere in the world you go, whatever nation of the world you go, these are the things you are going to keep hearing, this and this and this. Now, but that is not the purpose of today's discussion anyways, but I want to welcome you as you join in. Please like, share, and also subscribe to the channel if you have not. I want to look at critically the issues that concern us regarding ancestral or our ancestors, because there have been so many arguments about ancestors and our existence today. In fact, we have gotten so frustrated that most of our people now are fighting against Christianity and against also Christianity. Basically, they are not even fighting against Islam that is trying to invade our land. Now they are fighting. When you go to on the social media platforms of so many people, you will hear lots of them criticizing Christianity and talking about us going to our roots and not understanding the difference between our roots and way of life. Now, our root is cultural, right? And it's designed by a group of people who came together. Of course, Eri, who is our root anyways. From him, our people, we began to have nations, and today we have the nation of the Igbo nation and other nations too that are trapped in Nigeria. You have your roots from your ancestors. The Yorubas, I think, is linked to the Oduduwa and all those narratives. But if you want to look at these things and then want to look at them in a very clear, without bias, without compromise, without thinking of, self, just clamping down on your own, your own belief and your own understanding. If you want to look at it in a very clear, crystal clear approach, without sentiments and all of that, you will come to discover that there are so many things that we need to research and know about ourselves. Now, the reason why I want to talk about ancestor, I just decided to talk about ancestors, the mistakes of our ancestors and us today. Sorry, because it is barely 24 hours since RKF or RFK Kennedy, RFK Jr. or Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Decided to drop his bid for presidency in the United States and decided to embrace or endorse Donald Trump as his man for the one whom he's supporting as his man for the presidency, and after he did that, I'm trying to give you analysis or an explanation of JF R.F. Kennedy Jr., who talked about relinquishing his decision to contest as an independent candidate in the United States in the next coming election, the November election. And he said something. He said that he is endorsing President Trump as his running mate. Now, after immediately he did that. That was yesterday. He did that yesterday. Now, today, as at today, the propaganda media, the CNN, BBC, Fox, and all those stations that have been hijacked by the Democratic Party. Now, if you listen to JF Kennedy very well, you discover something. I'm sorry, R.F. Kennedy. Sorry. If you listen to him very well, you would have discovered something. He pointed on basic facts. He talked about the wars in the world. He talked about the wars. He mentioned about propaganda. He mentioned about corruption. He mentioned about our children. He mentioned about immorality. He mentioned so many critical things that are very, very key to what is happening today in the United States of America. Today, United States of America, rather than being God's nation, God's own nation, that just like they were built on in God we trust, today they have become a symbol of Sodom and Gomorrah to the world. In fact, they are now exporting immorality. Terrible situation. Now, JF Kennedy said something. He said that he is endorsing President Trump right now and he's supporting him because their vision and what they expect to do is, goes together and all of that. Now, today, his family has come to say that, especially one lady from his family that I heard today came to say that they are disappointed in him because he endorsed Donald Trump. They are disappointed that he left the Democratic Party to endorse Donald Trump. Now, that when I listened to that thing, it brought something about ancestral programs or ancestral activities to my mind. Because if a family member of R.F. Kennedy would come to say that he has betrayed the family by endorsing Donald Trump, then what does the family represent? Because if she's saying family, I don't know if she's talking on behalf of everybody or she's just talking as an individual who wants to impose her will on her family, on the family. Because Robert Kennedy Jr. is an entity. He's an adult. He's someone who has his own will and can make his decisions and take his decisions. He's not a juvenile. He's not a child. He's not a kid. So he can't be told what to do and how to do it. He has the right to decide what he wants for himself. And just like everyone, including the lady that came to say that he has disappointed or he has betrayed the family, everyone have their rights. Everyone has their right to determine or decide what they want to do. Now, why did R.F. Kennedy Jr. Why did one of his family members come to say on BBC or other stations where she's talked about that? Why did she come to say that because Kennedy Jr., that's Robert F. Kennedy Jr., has endorsed Donald Trump, why did she now say that he has betrayed the family? The word she used is betrayed. Why would she categorize the decision of R.F. Kennedy as R.F. Kennedy Jr. as a betrayal to the family? Who is she speaking for? Which family is she talking about? Is it her personal family, the one she has created? Or she's talking about the Kennedy family as a whole? Who is she representing? Who is she fronting for? Who is she speaking on behalf? Now, she also said that he has betrayed the family and disappointed their father, who was killed, the former president, JF Kennedy, who was killed, who stood on the principles of democratic norms that the Democratic Party represented in those times. Now, this is where the issue is, because when people speak, sometimes they don't reason. And especially when people are in the wrong side. Whenever you discover someone who wants to defend wrong and criminality and evil, they tend to lose their sense of reasoning very quickly. Because what they argue about becomes very, you begin to wonder if this person who looks like they are intelligent or intellectuals could reason this way to think about a thing pertaining to anything in this regard. Because when you say that the democratic norms that your father or the former president that was assassinated stood for or represented, now the issue here is, what are the norms he represented? Now, one of the things that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. talked about was that the Democratic Party is now a party of wars, party of propaganda, censorship, party of corruption. Now, he talked about how he's been censored by the activities of the media today. He mentioned things about how the media is censoring his activities and all of that. In fact, he said that during the Democratic, the Democratic rally that just happened, and trying to endorse Kamala Harris, that on the first day of the rally, Donald Trump was mentioned 147 times. Whereas during the RNC rally, that's Republican National Convention, in the 4 days of the convention, Joe Biden was mentioned only 2 times, which means that their conventions, DNC convention, that's Democratic National Convention, that's Democratic Party National Convention, was not about principles, not about templates, not about programs, not about ideology, not about constructive reasoning and all of that. It is about targeting somebody and trying to put him down. In fact, R.F. Kennedy himself said that all through the 16 weeks or 16 months, he has decided to come out as a private candidate, bringing Fox, CNN, and all these media together, that he has only been given two chances of appearing to be interviewed by these media houses. They have been censored. He and Donald Trump have been censored. And so many things that are going on, especially regarding children, abortion, killing of children, wars, promoting wars, and money business, where they are making money through wars, procuring arms and ammunition through their own companies and sending them abroad so that they will make more money and make more money. Now, the issue here now becomes the issue of integrity. So now, based on that, if the family member of R.F. Kennedy Jr. is saying that he has betrayed and the principles their father stood on, what was the principles their father stood on? And as at their father's time, or the president who was assassinated, as at his time, was there this level of corruption in the Democratic Party? That becomes the question. Because during those times, for instance, R.F. Kennedy said that his father and those who were pioneers of the Democratic Party then would not come anytime to stand for presidency or declare to be presidents without being called up to compete ideologically with the opponent. In fact, they would always come several times to debate with the opponents. And he said something, since Kamala Harris, for the past 30 days or 31 days that she has been, Joe Biden step aside also, and Kamala Harris has taken over, how many times has she come out for a debate? She has not done that. It is against the ethics and the principles or the ideology of the Democratic Party. Now, when he was mentioning all of this stuff, you know what was coming into my mind? Because this is not I'm just giving you the briefs of these stories, so that you can understand the perspective I'm coming from. And what I want to deduce from there is the fact that this lady is saying that he has disappointed or he has betrayed the family. Now, what is betrayal here? And on what principles or on what platform is she basing betrayal? Because if you say I have betrayed a cause, then we must look at what that cause represents and what I am doing about the cause. Which means that if you say that Democratic Party had been betrayed, as at the time JF Kennedy was in the Democratic Party before he was killed when he was the president, there was, based on the fact that the Democratic Party was built on, it was a Labour Party where they stood for the people. Now, as at the time JF Kennedy was still alive, the party was standing strongly on those principles. Now, what principles is the Democratic Party standing on? That becomes the big question. Now, the truth here is now that if this is the case, then if you say I have betrayed something, on what premise do you base your conclusion? That becomes the question. Now, let's bring it to the issue of ourselves as Biafrans or Oduduwa Nation or Hausa Nation or any other nation. Over time, we have been seeking for our freedom. We have been under serious subjugation, serious suppression by the British contraption, by the system that controls Nigeria. Because the name Nigeria itself is a system for control. It's a design for control. It is not a nation, neither is it a state or a country. It was originally designed. I don't know how many times we're going to say this for people to understand. The Nigeria program is not a program for nationhood. It is a business-oriented strategy to bring about individual, nations and bring them together to control them administratively. The name of that administrative body is called Nigeria. Nigeria is the administrative name given to the indigenous people around. But before Nigeria came to the fore, or before Nigeria became manifested, there were lifestyles, cultural approach, and way of life of the people. The way of life of the people determined or showcased or represented whom these people are. For instance, the Oduduwa Nation have their way of life. The Biafra people have their way of life. All the tribes, trapped under that administrative program called Nigeria, they all have their way of life. Now, before the British came, or before the slavery program began, there were institutional approach to the way the people lived. It was that same institutional approach that was corrupted over time, and it was the corruption that came over time that helped the British conquer the nations, the indigenous nations. Now, let me tell you something. Biafra Nation, or the people, the Igbo race, or the Jugun race, or the Oduduwa race, or the Bagi race, or the Buari race, or the Efik race, or the Ijaw race, whatever race you can remember trapped under the narrative Nigeria, none of these races were defeated by the British mafias that came into the terrain without the help of the corruption in those systems. Which means that ancestrally we had corrupt people, or people who capitalized on the situation, on the system, corrupted the program or the cultural values of the people, and helped the British conquer their nations. They helped the British. So anywhere you see a conquest that is connected to evil or corruption, there is a link between the external corrupt system that is coming to take advantage of the people and the internal corrupt nature of the people within that particular nation who are actually in power and controlling the system. Now, let me tell you something. Let me just use Biafra as a key study in this matter. When the British came, Biafra Nation, or the Igbo Nation, was not conquered in isolation. The Igbo Nation was already having corrupt people, corrupt leaders coming around and doing some stuff. And the people were allowing these corrupt people to thrive. The people were allowing the corrupt people to rule them or lead them. the people were allowing corruption in their midst. I had a situation in my place, where there's a particular piece of land that belongs to my family, and of course, my father is the head of the house, so he is supposed to be doing control of that, having that land. And when I was growing up, I grew up to learn that my grandfather, was killed on his own land, and when he, returned to Biafra land from abroad where he was based, when he came back, because he basically was abroad even during the war, 1967 war. My grandfather was abroad doing his business, working with the military, in a particular nation. And as at that time, after the war and all of that, I think about 3 years after the war, the genocidal war against Biafra nation, my grandfather returned. And when he returned, there were so many lands, because he is the first son of his own father. So there were so many lands that should be under his control. His other brothers had actually started using those lands because he had been away for a long time. So these lands were supposed to be given back to him. And so he now began to request for these lands. But along the line, there was one or two of his brothers who refused to relinquish the land to him. And they said, if he decides to stand his ground to take that particular land, that they're going to make sure that he dies. He's not going to succeed in getting that land. And that was what happened. My grandfather, determined to take that land, because that land is a very major land, very wide, very versatile land, very huge land. His determination to take that land and plant on that land, he went on that land to tap palm wine. And as he climbed the tree, that was where he died. And that was tremendous. That was terrible. That was horrible. And my father, now growing up, of course knowing the story, he now decided to go for that same land, because that land had been in the hands of those people for over. We learned that it has been in their hands for over 80 years now or so. So they have been farming on that land free of charge, making a hell of money from that land. They have been farming on the land for over about 80 years plus, or something years, according to what my father told me. Now, when my father now father now decided that he's going to go for that land. Since his own father was killed because of that land, it is time for him to go and take that land. And when he decided to go for that land, he went to the wife, the very old woman, who is the wife of the man who actually orchestrated the killing of my grandfather. She went to the woman to talk about the land, and the woman said, "Oh, is it this land that your dad died? Your dad was killed." When people begin to confess, that was when they know, so you guys actually killed him for that particular land. Now she said that, "Is it this land that your father was killed for? You two want to die on the land?" So they were telling my father that, "Oh, you want to die on the land that your own father died on?" That was when he said, "Wow, so this is true. You guys actually killed my father to take this land, right?" Now that means that is when now I'm going to take it. If you think that evil can thrive at all times, then it's not going to be happening in my time. So that was how he decided to go for the land. And today, he's fighting for the land. Now, what the story I wanted to bring out of this is this. When he went to the community, because in every community in Biafra land, there's always this family meeting, to where issues of the community, issues of the community are discussed, where people, we bring issues that happen in the community. So in our community, anyways, my father took the matter to the community, where we're from. And of course, every Biafra community has that kind of meeting, family meeting, where youths or elders, you have the youth session, you have the elderly people session. And so he took the matter to that place, and they looked at it and they said they were good. But did you know what happened? What is happening? Those guys that family, some of them who are controlling that piece of land that belonged to my family, went behind and they give them some sum of money. And so when they come for meetings, the family will begin to play pranks with the stuff. So when I got to Biafra land, I was told that this is happening. That in fact that family, they actually give the people 300,000 or so. And I said, is it because of 300,000 that old men, elderly people would refused to say the truth, knowing that this land belongs to my family. 300,000 that one can just go to the market now and spend. That is what grown-up men, elderly men would sit down to take and sell their conscience. Now, this is a true picture of the connection with what happened when the British came. We had corrupt people who were sitting in positions of control in Biafra land and other nations. These same corrupt people were the ones who connived with the British to sell their own people, take their resources, give to the British for something that is stipend. They were giving them things like sweets and some other things. That was what the British was giving to them when they were selling their own people. Each nation was conquered, or every nation in that Biafra territory, they were conquered because there was a combination of the evil people from the colonial masters coming in and the evil people within. They connived with the locals to betray their people. That is ancestral mistakes and errors. Now, these ancestral mistakes and errors are the reason why we are where we are today. And we have gone deeper into them because the same thing keep playing out over and over and over and over again. Now, the truth here is, even if we have a history, there is the good side of the history and the bad side of the history, right? As I said, I've said it several times, every culture is practiced, in the narrative of traditions. Traditions are expression of culture. Because when you talk about traditions, you're talking about expressing the culture of the people. And sometimes people introduce false traditions to corrupt the culture of the people. When you say this is the tradition, this is what we did, our tradition, it simply means that this is how we express our culture. This is how we express the things we believe in. This is how we express ourselves. Through traditions, you express the cultural values of a people. But here, just like we talk about Omenala and Ordinala, these are two different things. You understand? Omenala, Ordinala is the cultural value of the people. That means the cultural approach or the nature of our lifestyle, our way of life. Now, Omenala is the expression, and that is where the corruption comes in. Because people begin to bring different devious ways to express and make you feel that this is a cultural thing. This should be the way of the culture. Or this is the way our culture should be. So that is when we began to have people who started corrupting the leadership, the eldership, the elderhood. Let me use it that way. The eldership, let me use it also that way. They began to corrupt this stuff. And that is how they now compromised to sell our people to the British. Today we have that grave situation. Now let me tell you something. For the fact that there was this betrayal of our ancestors, especially some of them who connived with the British against us, for the fact that there was this betrayal, does it mean that we in the current generation should also betray our freedom and our cause? We don't need to adopt that lifestyle, because for the fact that they are ancestors doesn't mean we have to go the wrong way because they went the wrong way. Talking about those ones who betrayed us anyways. There was those who were standing on the right. But the problem we had is that those who were standing on the right didn't have a voice or couldn't withstand or stand against those who were brutal. Let me tell you something. Those who always project the evil side are always the brutal ones. They are always the brutal ones. That was why Jesus said that the violent takes it by force. So if you are standing on the truth, you must know that truth also goes with a violent side of you that must retain the truth. Don't think that as a truthful person, you must be quiet and allow evil to thrive. That is why I love what Robert F. Kennedy just did. He came out, he aligned did you know he said something? He also said that even with all these things that he believes that the Democratic Party had gone against the principles and the core values of the Democratic Party that his father stood for, and his father was elected, on those the principles. He said even if the Democratic Party had gone away, he still met Kamala Harris to discuss these things, the issues, the core values, so that they could look at it, so that he could see if he could still retain his membership of the Democratic Party and still align with them, so that they can change their ways and go back to the previous. Kamala Harris never met with him, never discussed with him, didn't want to. But Donald Trump met with him and discussed with him, and he discovered that their values are similar. That means what the Democratic Party represented then is what Donald Trump is representing now, and which the Democratic Party has lost already. Now, let's look at ourselves. What are the principles as at then that our fathers had that, that is that stood for truth and justice, and stood for one another, and made our nation great as at then, before the British came? Now, what are the principles that the corrupt ancestors stood for that made us get into trouble and lose our nationhood as at that time? Because it is the principles of the corrupt leaders, elders, traditional rulers. Now, most of you, as I said initially, some of us are thinking that going back to our root means to abandon Christianity. That's where ignorance is. I've seen so many people. In fact, some of them will tell me privately, and they will tell me that we have to go back to our root. That our root, we have to go back to our root. We have to abandon Christianity, and they start pointing different things about Christianity, making some very terrible and funny assertions and statements and compositions, and saying so many things that make no sense about Christianity, because they don't even understand what Christianity represents. Now, Christianity is not a religious tool for control. No, even if it was used that way by the British. Christianity is a way of life. It is the lifestyle. The apostles were called Christians the first time in Antioch because the people saw that they behaved like Christ. They were operating like Christ. They were doing things like Christ. We have ancestors, or we had ancestors, or we have ancestors anyways. It's still present continuous. So we have them who did things that made us lose our nation to Britain and the colonial masters. What did they do? That is the big question we should ask ourselves. The big question we should ask ourselves today. What did our ancestors do that made them lose their nation to the British? How come the British could come, few people would come into our land, pick lots of people, pick lots of them, take them into the ship, take them into ships, load them into the Americas, to the Caribbeans, to different places, sell them off as slaves? They were picking thousands of our people. Few men would come into our land, pick thousands of people into ships. Some of them are killed on the high sea. Some of them are drowned. Some of them are, some are taken to the Caribbeans, other parts of the world, and sold as slaves. How did they succeed in doing this? Few men come into our system and take our people for slaves. You think if our people were standing on the truth, especially our leaders then were standing on the truth, did you think that anybody would have been taken like that? It would have been a bloody war. In fact, they would be so frustrated. The British, the colonial masters would be so frustrated because the bond that the people are having would have stood against the colonial masters from taking anybody as slaves. They wouldn't have conquered our territories, not to talk about calling us Nigerians. They wouldn't have. But they were able to, because the leaders as at that time, whom today some of us call ancestors and some of us worship them. Let's go back to what our ancestors did. Some of you don't understand that being an ancestor does not mean culture. Being an ancestor does not mean way of life. An ancestor had his own life to live based on the culture that was existent then, even up till now. The ancestor would either live according to the culture or against the culture. So an ancestor does not represent the culture. An ancestor represents a particular lifestyle that either favored the culture or misled people or destroyed the culture or tried to destroy the culture. What was our culture? What were our values? We loved one another. We never had anybody controlling us. We always believed in hierarchy and respect and order. We lived a life of truth, justice, and all of that. We cared for one another. In fact, we don't kill. It was an abomination to kill. We don't commit atrocities. It was an abomination to commit all those atrocities. These were our cultural values. The ancestors, as at that time, some of them didn't live according to the ancestral values or culture. No ancestor is the value of the culture of the people. Every ancestor is an individual whose lifestyle was supposed to represent or replicate or represent the lifestyle of the culture and value of the people. Now, you can have an ancestor who didn't live according to the standard of the culture, and that is the error that they made to put the people in trouble so that their cultural values could be captured by the enemy. These are the things we fail to misunderstand. We fail to understand, sorry. These are the things we misunderstand. Now, but here now we have people who are misunderstanding culture and religion, or culture and tradition, because religion is a traditional way of expressing your culture, just like the Constitution gives practical essence of your cultural values, because in your Constitution you are going to put things that you know that you believe in. So when you talk about Christianity, in the first place, Christianity is not a British program. The British only came into it, just like the Roman Empire came into it. They hijacked it and took it and all of that. But I'm not talking about Christianity today, but I want you to understand something. The mistakes that our forefathers did has nothing to do with our culture. It only has something to do with their behavior and their attitude towards our culture. So if today we are going to talk about going back to our ancestors and our roots, we must understand that going back to our ancestors and roots is in two ways. Either you're going back to the ancestral behavior of those who behaved well and positively about our culture, or going back to the ancestor that misbehaved and sold us to the slave master. Two things about our culture, two things about our ancestors, two things. One set of people who believed in the culture and values of our lifestyle and who did the right thing, but the only problem is that they couldn't stand strong to influence and control those people who are evil, because evil people are more violent than those who are standing on the path of truth. It's happening today. So if we want to go back to our ancestors, how do we go and what do we do about it? We must look at the ancestors. There are two types we have. We have those ones who lived according to the standards of our culture. We have the ancestors who lived against the standard of our culture. The ancestors that lived against the standard of our culture are the reason why we are in slavery today. They are the reason why we are called Nigerians today. They are the reason why we are called failed or third world country today. They're the reason why our children are being killed everywhere today. They're the reason why our people died in the high sea when they were being traded along all over the nations of the world. They're the reason why we're hungry and still trapped in Nigeria today. They are the reason why Fulanis are trying to invade our land today. It was because of our ancestors who were on the path of lies. Let me say it again. Ancestors are not the culture of the people. Ancestors are human beings who lived in the time, of course, in their own time, who were supposed to live according to the traditions and culture of the people. But some of them went against the culture of the people, sold their people. Some of them lived according to the culture. So if you are saying that let's go back to the times of our ancestors, or let's go back to ancestors, you have to be specific. Which of the ancestors do you want to emulate? Is it the ancestors that sold us to the British, or the ancestors that did the right thing? If it is the ancestors that did the right thing, then what did they do right and what did they not do right? If they did some things right, they stood on the ground of truth and all of that, just like Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is standing on the truth now. In the next 100 years, people will call Mazi Nnamdi Kanu an ancestor. But they are going to look at what he did right. He stood for the truth and he's fighting for it. We had ancestors those days that stood for the truth but didn't fight. Some of them fought and they died. Then those who betrayed, sold the thing, and were able to overcome those ones who are on the path of truth. That's the problem. Whenever you give the wrong people the room to continue, they will expand because they have a way of capturing every moment, capturing the system and the structure and all of that. Look at what has happened to America today. The Democratic Party has captured the system, put the system under it. Everybody dances according to the tune of what the people in the Democratic Party of now are dancing. Now, the truth about it is that the Democratic Party had its own cultural operation or its own norm and principles. The people now presiding over the Democratic Party have gone against those precepts and principles. Tomorrow they will be called ancestors. Tomorrow they will be called founders and part of those who were democratic. But there are going to be two people that are going to be in view of those people who are of the future. They're going to look at two types of people. Are we going to emulate the members of the Democratic Party during the time of J.F. Kennedy, who was the president, where the Democratic Party was standing on truth and accountability and transparency and all of that, all the time of Joe Biden and Barack Obama and all of that, when the Democratic Party have been corrupted, hijacked, and used as a weapon globally for the globalists? So when you say ancestor, you must be clear, you must be very careful, because sometimes some of us don't understand what ancestors mean. I'm going to take my time in another broadcast to talk about this particular ancestral program and make it a special talk and discussion. Maybe hopefully I won't set a time or date, but I'm going to do that. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to take my time. I don't want to give you, but I'll keep posting videos. Please like them, share on all your social media platforms and all of that. When I have the time, I'm going to come live like this and I'm going to talk about it to make sure that we understand when we say our ancestors. We want to go back to the ways of our ancestors. We want to go, hey, Ego, I'm just seeing your message now. The upright and truthful ancestors. That's the truth. Because people keep saying ancestors. Let's go back to the days of ancestors. Who are the ancestors you are talking about? The ancestors, I'll say it again, they are not the culture. They are people who live in their time, who were supposed to keep the culture. Some of them didn't keep the culture. Some of them were part of those who didn't keep the culture, were part of those who sold us to the British and sold our people slaves all over the nations of the world. And they are regarded as ancestors today. There are others who stood by the truth. They were killed. Some of them were killed. They refused to let go. Thank you so much, Ego. Thank you. They couldn't let go. But some of them died. Some of them still lived. But because they were few, their voices couldn't be heard, or they didn't have opportunity of the media, because Britain was in control. So Britain gave voice. They brought CNN, they brought BBC, they brought all the things that would give voice to the wrong people. But today, when you call people, let's come together and set up a system that will help us have a voice. For instance, tell people to share this platform now, share it on all their social media platforms, share this broadcast. They won't, but they will prefer to share the one that is killing them. That is how you give voice to the enemy. Today, BBC is everywhere, CNN is everywhere, all over Africa. How many of our stations are in their land, and how many is being watched there? How many of our people even watch our own stations? We don't. You know why? The criminals have amassed wealth. They stole African funds. Today, they have used those funds to set up system, the structure for themselves, so that they could use it to continually suppress the truth. It is you and I that will decide to liberate ourselves, and the time has come. We must begin to do it randomly. Social media is an important aspect of it. This gospel I'm preaching now, how many of you will share it? Send it all around to people. Share, whether they watch or not, just send it. Keep sending on platforms that you belong, but the ones you don't belong. Send it far and wide. You will discover something. You will discover that we will continue to have opportunity. Why is it that today we have people talking against the globalists today? It's because social media came on board. People began to hear the real truth. If not for social media, we're still having CNN, BBC, and all those ones as mainstream media controlling the system, and no social media platforms. We will still keep believing the lies. But today, on social media, you can hear the truth, especially when you go to X now, which is Twitter. Go to X now. The truth is being said as it is. And I just thank God for Elon Musk, who took over that platform. Very, 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 remarkable thing he did. So please share this on all your social media platforms. Like it, comment, air your views. Also, subscribe if you have not subscribed. Let's spread the gospel. Let people hear it all over the nations of the world. We're going to talk more on this ancestral thing so that people can understand it better. I'll take my time to explain it very well so people can understand. So next time you're saying we have to go back to our root. Who is the root? Our ancestors. Who is the ancestor you're talking about? You must be clear. You must understand what you're asking for. And it has nothing to do with Christianity. It has nothing to do with Christianity. Because Christianity is not our problem. Christianity is not our problem. Christianity is a way of life of a people. The attitude, the behavior of a person who came. He lived, his behavior, his actions, his ways. His ways, not a religion. So what Britain came to do was institute religion to control you. But that's not what Christianity is. It's a way of life. The attitude of Christ. They were first called Christians because of the way they behaved, not because they had built a religion, but because the way they behaved. They loved one another. They wanted to give alms. They pray for people. They heal the sick. They were helping. They were coming together, sharing their things together. These are the things the apostles were doing. Not today's church anyways, where corruption has taken over and people have turned it to personal businesses. No. So you should understand, when you say ancestors, you should understand what you're saying. I'll give more on this later. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. Ego, good to see you here. And I want to say, enjoy your week. This is Sunday. Sorry, this is Saturday, right? Tomorrow is Sunday. A new week begins tomorrow, the 25th of August 2024. And I pray God will bless your week and favor you, give you everything that you expect, and favor you on all sides. I want to appreciate you guys. Please, let's begin to understand the need for us to come together and form a bond for freedom, for true freedom, or else we're going to get ourselves in trouble. We're going to get ourselves defeated, because if they keep dividing us, we'll keep getting divided. Today, they are sponsoring, some division in Libya. They want to cause a serious fight in Libya as I talk to you right now. The West sponsoring serious division between the governments at Tripoli, the government at Benghazi, these two governments. Libya has been divided into two now. They want to go into outright main war. And this is because the globalists are not done with Africa. Look at what they are doing in Sudan. Look at what they are trying to do. Look at what they did about 3 weeks ago in Niger Republic, or in Mali, sorry, where they killed some Russian, using some Ukrainian, squad to kill some Russian forces, causing problems in our land. That's what the globalists have turned the world to. But if we don't come together, look at what they want to do in South Africa. Cause division. They want to cause division. They want to cause division. They want to cause division so that two African nations will be fighting. The South Africans will be fighting those who are, in the contraption called Nigeria. Say Nigerians have done this. Look at what is happening. Division everywhere. But we must stand united. The time to liberate ourselves is now. Thank God for social media. We can communicate and tell ourselves what we want to do. And this is the time for us to do it. We must see it as strength for ourselves. And it is time for us to be strong. I appreciate you guys. Enjoy the rest of your day and your week. And may you get the best out of the most. May God bless you. Very good. Bless the work of your hand. Bless your family. Keep you alive. We'll all see Biafra come in our time. And we pray that Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, wherever he is, God will strengthen him and protect him. And we believe that he's going to be out soon by God's grace. God is going to bring him out very quickly. And God will save him, because God has him in his arm, in his hand, in the palm of his hand. God has him. Let's keep praying for him. Nothing can go wrong with him. Nothing will happen to him. Whatever the enemy, those ones who are using Biafra project as criminality right now, they want him to die. Whatever they want to happen to Mazi Nnamdi Kanu will not happen. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu will be alive. He will come out and you will see where he stands. You will see that he is a man of truth. he's a man of his words, and then you will know. Some of you, those of you who have been misled, you will now understand better the things that you should understand when Mazin and kind of comes out. Because when we keep talking, some of you think that it's about personality, attacking people, and all of that. But you see me, I don't talk about some things again, because I know that it's just I've given the message. So those of you who want to stand in the path of truth, you know already. You don't need so much. We keep talking about other things that will bring us together and bond us until Mazin and Mekano is out. Then you will know the truth of what you should know. Especially those of you who are weak, lily-livered and weak. You support anything. You don't care. You just keep supporting. You just want to. Hey, Igwe. Hey, hey, strong man, DK. That's all you want to hear. So enjoy the rest of your day, your morning, your afternoon, your night. Enjoy your week. God bless you really good. Thank you. Thank you.